All right, let's get into it. Today we're talking about the architect behind some of the most, well, challenging and brilliant music of the 20th century, Frank Zappa. I mean, this guy was a composer, a guitar god, a satirist, and a total iconoclast, often all in the same song.
And that really is the puzzle with Zappa, isn't it? The press often just wrote him off as this kind of vulgar clown, but if you ask his peers, everyone from rock legends to world-famous conductors, they tell you he was an absolute genius. So how do you make sense of that? Well, let's try to unpack his blueprint.
You know, to even get a handle on who Zappa was, you have to start with the sheer, almost baffling scope of his work. The man absolutely refused to be put into any kind of box.
Yeah, this really shows you what he was pulling from. As a teenager, he was completely obsessed with these super serious 20th century composers like Stravinsky, but at the same time, he loved 1950s R&B and doo-wop. And for him, there was just no reason why those two worlds couldn't smash right into each other.
And that was the thing, right? His personality was just as complex as his music. His sense of humor was so biting, and his critiques of American culture were so sharp that a lot of people totally missed his serious side as a composer. He was a provocateur for sure, but there was always this deep structural method to his madness.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting, because under all that apparent chaos, Zappa had this grand master plan, a kind of unifying theory for his entire life's work. And once you get it, it is the key to everything. He actually called it the project/object. So the big idea here is that Zappa never saw an album as some final, finished thing. No. For him, an album was just one piece of the puzzle, one project that was building toward a much, much larger object, which was basically his entire body of work.
And this quote from the man himself just perfectly sums it up. He thought, hey, if I come up with a cool musical idea or a funny character, why should I only use it once? So a little melody from a 1960s album might just suddenly reappear in a crazy guitar solo from the 1980s.
He called these connections conceptual continuity. And if you are a dedicated fan, it created this unbelievable interconnected universe. Suddenly, all these weird recurring things like poodles or vacuum cleaners or characters like Susie Cream Cheese, they weren't just random jokes anymore. They were the threads holding the entire collection together. So this whole philosophical approach to art, it wasn't just some abstract idea. It was about to face a very dramatic, very real-world test. Zappa's deep belief in total artistic freedom put him on a collision course with the US government in one of the biggest culture clashes of the 1980s.
Okay, so in 1985, a group of powerful Washington wives, including Tipper Gore, formed the Parents Music Resource Center, or the PMRC. Their goal? To get warning labels on music with explicit lyrics. And this all led to this legendary Senate hearing where, get this, Frank Zappa, folk singer John Denver, and Twisted Sisters Dee Snider all showed up to fight back. What a team!
And the debate really boiled down to this. The PMRC kept saying, we're just trying to help parents. But for Zappa, it was a clear-cut First Amendment issue. He saw these labels as a really dangerous first step towards government censorship, all dressed up in moral concern.
So Zappa shows up, dressed in a conservative suit, and just calmly delivers this articulate and absolutely devastating critique. It was this moment that really transformed him from this counterculture weirdo in the eyes of many into this celebrated cultural warrior, a real champion for artistic freedom. Now, Zappa sadly passed away from cancer back in 1993, but his legacy as an architect, not just of music, but of ideas, has only gotten stronger. The structures he built are still influencing artists today. I mean, just look at this number. He put out 62 albums while he was alive, and his family has released over 57 times more from his massive archive. That is just a staggering amount of work, and it really shows you how relentless his creativity was. And his influence just spiders out everywhere. This is just a tiny sample of artists from completely different worlds. We're talking heavy metal, funk, modern classical music, and they all point back to Zappa as this crucial figure who basically gave them permission to think way, way outside the box. His impact is so wide-ranging, it's even crossed over into science, which is pretty wild. A few years ago, researchers found a new kind of acne-causing bacteria in grapevines, of all places, and named it P. acnes type Zappae. Why? Well, they said the bacteria's behavior was so unconventional, it made them think of Frank Zappa. You can't make this stuff up. And that kind of brings us to a final thought. Zappa always said his entire life's work was really just one single big note. This one, unified, incredibly complex expression.
You think about it, decades before we had things like the Marvel Cinematic Universe or artists building these whole worlds for their fans online, Zappa was already pioneering this idea. So, in our world today, a world of neat little genre categories and algorithms telling us what to like, what's the value of an artist who demanded we step back and see the whole, giant, defiant picture?